This is from Justin to Kane, a podcast where Mike Robertson and Bob LaRue watch one critically acclaimed film and one terrible film and talk about how they are the same. Interesting fact about the Flesh cassettes, Betamax, because they were smaller and could fit better in the chest slit. Isn't that interesting? A little note from Rick Baker, who did the makeup effects.
Yeah, so that
Who's
means,
also a legend.
That means that Videodrome is coming down on the side of Betamax instead of VHS?
Exactly. Well, and that was really like when that shit was all starting, wasn't it? 1980, well, 3 when it came out, but they were shooting in 1981.
Yeah, so this movie was kind of ahead of its time.
Yeah. I wonder, you know what? Have you ever seen Existenz?
Yes.
Is there any like floppy disk stuff in there or like CD stuff?
I don't remember that. I just remember like this weird little umbilical cord that they used to connect to the video game.
Right. Or the bone gun.
Yeah.
Guy loves guns that aren't guns, you know?
Yeah.
Ooh, another thing. So you know the cancer gun that he shoots?
Yes.
Apparently it's like way more phallic, and it had a foreskin that you had to like pull back to cock the gun and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Cronenberg looked at it and he's like, "This is way too fucked up, man. Like we
Yeah.
can't put this in the movie."
That's
I
great.
love that he drew the line on having a foreskin on the handgun.
I mean, I get it. I get it.
Honestly, me too.
Yeah.
Okay, anyways, that's a nice cold open, huh? Super cold open.
Oh,
Icy cold. Yeah. It's not 30 degrees out and smelling like campfire.
No,
it's fucking cold.
We got a complaint from a canine that we talk about the heat waves too much, which only happened on 2 episodes, so I don't know what's going on.
Wow. I mean, I love that there's such an active listener, but also I'm sweating my ass off, and so are you. So neither of us have air conditioning. It'd be way more mellow if we did.
I know, yeah. And
we're too broke.
We closed all the windows because there's smoke outside.
Yeah, me too. So now there's not even a breeze.
Yeah.
Anyways,
weather report.
That was an even colder open.
Weather corner.
Well, the weather corner in our octagonal room. I was talking about Fago yesterday with some mutual friends of ours. Actually, special guest Julia Gruchowski. We were chatting about it yesterday on the street. I love that people were into that as much as they were, considering it has nothing to do with anything.
But it's the official drink from Justin to Kane.
It is. Yeah, all the flavors. Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Bob.
I'm Mike.
And we got a doozy this week. This week was more fun than it usually is for us.
Oh, yeah?
I would say. Don't you agree, or do you disagree?
I actually kind of agree, yeah.
Because both movies were a good time. Sometimes we choose a real turd, or even sometimes a good movie is a little stuffy.
Yeah,
you know?
I agree, yeah. Sometimes it's just boring.
Yeah, it's no Wild Mountain Time. It's something stuffy like Lawrence of Arabia or something.
Yes.
Anyways, the 2 films this week are sick. What's
Sick,
your film,
bro.
Mike?
So, my film?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I researched Samurai Cop.
Nice. And I did Videodrome. Those
Yeah.
are the 2 movies.
Had you seen either of these before?
I've seen Videodrome, actually, when I was like 12. I watched it. I was
Yeah.
home alone, busted out my parents' computer, found it illegally on the internet and watched it. And I was like, what is this? Because I had read about David Cronenberg and I was becoming a young cinephile, as it were. And then that was my first movie of his that I watched. And honestly, pretty high benchmark because the guy has some turds early on.
Oh, yeah. I watched Videodrome as a child as well.
Oh, nice.
On VHS.
Oh, not Betamax.
No.
How contradictory to have it be released on VHS.
Well, they couldn't have predicted.
No, that's true.
It's like if they made a movie in 2006-ish, and like they made Videodrome then, and instead of about video cassettes, it's about HD DVD, a format that just died out really quickly.
That's a really good comparison, actually.
Thank you.
R.I.P. HD DVD. And hello, Blu-ray.
Hello, Blu-ray.
Hi, Blu-ray. Nice to meet you. Okay. Sick. Good films. When was the first time you saw Samurai Cop?
Last month.
So that was early. Same. I watched it yesterday.
Yeah. How was it for you?
It's such a good time.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Oh my God. I loved it. It wasn't boring. You know how the movies are sometimes like they're fun to watch, but they're also really boring. This kind of like kept me going. There was just something in every scene that I found so unnecessary or weird, and it was just fun to watch. Like the way they shot it was funny. The nudity was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
The sex scenes and stuff were just like, honestly, Italian chef's kiss. Mwah, perfect sex scenes.
Yeah.
Considering both of these movies had a lot of sex scenes, first comparison. Just gonna say.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would also say that those sex scenes are grotesque in nature.
And you could just see the lech behind the camera in a Samurai Cop. Like it'd be like a 2-shot, and then the camera would just like go down to somebody's butt and just stay there for a while, and it's like nice.
Yeah, the people just wriggling around on each other just seems so unnatural.
In their underwear?
In their underwear, yeah.
Yeah. Pretty wild. And they all did it. Like everyone had the same style of, sexy times, which is pretty funny too. You could tell the director was like, this is how I make love.
Yeah.
This is how you're going to make love. And they're all like, really? I've never worn a Speedo before, and I don't really want to do this, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But anyways, it was great. But who's a bigger pervert? David Cronenberg or the guy who did Samurai Cop? Or is it us for watching both these films?
Us.
Yeah, we're the perverts.
Specifically you.
God damn it. I walked into that, didn't I? Dang it.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us about Videodrome?
Okay, I will. Videodrome was released February 4th, 1984, but it was filmed in 1981. Apparently, actually, when they were filming, so they started in like early September, and then they wrapped apparently on Christmas Day.
Ooh, Merry Christmas! Which
is kind of fun.
Merry Christmas, new flesh.
Merry Christmas, new flesh. There was like and actually the scene, where the TV explodes in the boat. That's like the last thing they shot, and they shot that on Christmas Day.
Ooh,
which is kind of cool. And they had to do it twice apparently because the first time the air hose or whatever was too powerful. And it just blew up, and it was just like white smoke, and it didn't look like anything. So then they had to do it again and like drop it down so it'd be more oozy and nasty with like the guts and shit flying out of the TV.
And it wasn't snowing because it gets pretty cold in Toronto in the winter.
No, I don't know. Apparently not. Well, they were in a set. Like in a studio for that, right? Like the boat stuff, the exteriors of the boat was another thing altogether, but the actual TV blowing up, that was like in a studio, apparently. Right. I don't know. I watched a little making of that came out in the 80s, which was very interesting. Also, apparently, so like, this is more of the anecdotal stuff, I guess, and then I'll get into what I wrote down. But so he had like an original draft, but apparently every night they would wrap, and then he'd go home and he would just write the next day's scenes. Which I think is like why it feels like there's no real plot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's definitely just a body horror exhibition without a real narrative.
So how
how it felt.
How did they plan it if he was just making it up every day?
Well, he had like the broad strokes. I think.
Okay.
Like,
so they knew what locations they were going to be in?
There was a cancer gun. There was a whatever. Like he had all of those details, but I think like the minutia he kind of wrote every night when he got home. And so he was like pushed to the limit too, because you're writing all night and directing all day. You do that for like 2 months.
A fool's errand.
Truly. But he's a maverick Canadian auteur. So the only one.
It's kind of like Miyazaki, I guess. Miyazaki would do that with his animated films. He would just kind of improvise them for some reason.
Yeah, and they're both very animated and very grotesque.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
There's a lot of nasty shit in Miyazaki films.
I guess if you kind of work that way, you don't give yourself the option of editing, like editing your script. So you can just be like, I'm going to have this guy put a thing in a vagina in his stomach. I'm gonna put this VHS tape or Betamax tape in there. And that's a good idea because it's like 1 a.m. and I have to get this finished.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of creativity that happens when you're against the wall.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And there's an army of people standing around being like, what do you want from us? But anyways, okay, so David Cronenberg is like a famous Canadian filmmaker. He's probably one of the most famous ones who's had such a long, prolific career. Obviously, we have like Denis Villeneuve and some other folks.
Adam McGowan.
Yeah, sure.
Bruce McDonald.
Oh, wow. Okay, here we go.
Those are the only
Buckle up.
ones. Those are the only ones. They get all the telefilm money.
I have a bit on telefilm as well, because that's who financed this.
Oh, I thought you meant you were going to do like a tight 5 about telefilm.
Just shitting on telefilm for like 8 minutes on our podcast. No, I love telefilm. They've paid my rent a couple times.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, Paul Gross. That's the other one.
Oh, yeah. Paul Gross is a big one. He's a heavy hitter, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Passchendaele, right? He made Passchendaele?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, Cronenberg, actually, so his first film, Shivers, was like produced apparently by Telefilm and the Film Board.
Wow.
The Film Board now does like, for those of you who don't know, there's like many sort of crown corporations that are like, they answer to the Canadian federal government and they're given budgets, and then they allocate those budgets to like projects that are Canadian made by Canadians for Canadians. And so a lot of that is like really esoteric animation or documentary, and it's quite alienating and nobody watches it. Mm-hmm. But Telefilm tries to do more narrative work, which is nice. And so they financed his first feature, Shivers, which is about the little critter that like crawls inside of people and kills them in this like hotel complex. It travels through water or whatever. And then they financed Videodrome. But what's cool about this was it was the first film that he made that had a major studio become the distributor. So Universal Studios distributed Videodrome, which is pretty cool. And also, it's nutty.
What's nutty?
So apparently, so the year's 1981. He's like, "What's my next project?" And then he's like in limbo. He's trying to figure out what he wants to make, and he has a few scripts that he's written. And then George Lucas knocks on the door and says, "Hey, bud, you want to direct Return of the Jedi?"
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he turned it down because he didn't want to direct anything that wasn't sourced by him.
I mean, that makes sense given his style.
Imagine if Cronenberg, it would have been the same probably. Like, he would have just made a boring movie maybe. But it's just nutty. Like, also, this is a tangent, but Return of the Jedi, so many directors turned it down, like David Lynch, Cronenberg.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Many other noteworthy people I can't remember, but it's just kind of crazy, isn't it?
Well, George Lucas seemed to have an eye for the next big thing in surrealist film. So that's good.
Yeah.
But I also just imagine
space opera.
Yeah, imagine David Cronenberg doing like Return of the Jedi. You'd have Salacious Crumb just coming out of. He'd like be coming out of Jabba instead of just sitting on him.
Yeah. It'd be much more sexual, which would be sick. Honestly,
yeah, that'd be sick. Yeah,
a little bit more perversion in the Return of the Jedi film would be great.
Well, like the Sarlacc pit and all that stuff seems on brand.
Yeah. Honestly, he would have done a good job. He would have done it.
Let's be honest.
But anyway, so he and his producing partners and stuff had a couple scripts, and then they chose Videodrome. So it's funny, most of the original script is not in the movie because it was too fucked up.
Cool.
So basically, as they made the production, they just kept watering it down because as they were making it, they were like, "This is too much," which is kind of interesting. So it was made for $5.9 million, which was the biggest budget he had ever had at that point, and it flopped at the box office. It made 2.1.
Classic.
But then in the 30 years since, or I guess 40 now, it's become like it's one of his most famous films. Mm-hmm. It's regarded as one of his best.
Okay.
And his most original. Like, it's kind of really within critical circles. I feel like it's sort of looked at as one of his best films and his crowning achievement, which is funny because it's like really good and interesting and fun, but also not a great film on a certain level.
Yeah, on a certain level, yeah. There's like, if it wasn't for the body horror stuff, it would be kind of boring because it's just James Woods going into different office buildings and just asking people, do you know about Videodrome?
Well, when you describe it like that, Mike, actually, maybe that's another comparison we can just dump out right now. Both films have a protagonist just walking into buildings and asking questions.
Yeah. And they're like boring office buildings that are just kind of like blandly
and poorly lit.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just like very fluorescent. And it's like, hey, I'm looking for this person. Oh, I guess both characters are in pursuit of a person as well. And a lady specifically.
Yeah. That's true.
What were you going to say?
Like a secret organization or whatever is kind of in pursuit of a protagonist.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to stop the samurai cop.
That's right.
And they want James Woods' character to see Videodrome, I guess.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, so apparently, David Cronenberg grew up in Toronto, and he would catch late at night. So he was a child, and this is where the impetus for the film came from. He would be up late. His parents would be in bed, and he would catch, once the Canadian networks were shut off, like back then TV would go off the air, and he'd just have the standby signal for 10 or 12 hours. And then the CBC would come back on or whatever. But he would catch the like television frequencies from Buffalo and then see like old movies and stuff. And then he in his imagination, he was like, well, what if I saw something I wasn't supposed to see? Or what if there was like secret wavelengths that had like really perverted stuff that the super bizarre and rich would watch?
Yeah.
Or whatever, and like watch snuff films and stuff. And so that's where the impetus came from. But the idea came from his childhood, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I guess that is kind of interesting. It's because we saw this as children.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just like kind of like that culture of when you're a teen or whatever of like, oh, I might see something I shouldn't see on TV late at night or something like that.
We've all been there.
We've all been there.
Am I right? Not the only pervert here. Okay. No. You are.
Let
me be very clear, Bob. You are the only pervert here.
You're pervert one.
On the call sheet of life, I'm pervert one.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Anyways, so it was produced by, at the time, it was called the Canadian Film Development Corporation. How's that for a sexy name?
Ooh.
So a little history on telefilm, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand that there's no like private business for Canadian film.
Yeah.
It just doesn't exist. It's all through government grants and agencies, which is both awesome and deeply frustrating, as I'm sure Mike can attest.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so at the time, it was called the Canadian Film Development Corporation. It's now known as Telefilm. So it was started in 1967 with a $10 million budget. What it is a crown corporation that answers to the federal government and is founded to like garner Canadian productions because they basically didn't exist. And then with each decade, basically the budget doubled.
Yeah.
So in the 70s, it went from 10 to like 25, and then I think it went up to 50 million in the late 80s. And now it's probably still there, that budget, but it's, the numbers kept going up. But they've made a lot of relatively famous Canadian productions.
Yeah.
And co-productions. A big thing people like to do is get like the equivalent of telefilm, but like in Ireland or some other sort of smaller country. And then they make a co-production so that they have twice the money.
Yeah.
Double the tax credits, all that stuff.
Like
there's a lot of finagling you can do. Yes. Yeah. Room is one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like, this is neither here nor there, but the film Cube, famous telefilm horror movie, also a cult status now,
Yeah.
And that's a pretty fun, cool movie.
Yeah, pretty fun. Pretty cool.
Wouldn't have been made without telefilm. So there you go.
Thank you, telefilm.
And neither would Videodrome. And needless to say, virtually every single one of Cronenberg's films was financed by telefilm.
There you go. When I lived in Toronto, I saw them filming a Cronenberg movie.
Which one?
I think it was Map of the Stars.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
I didn't see any of the big actors. I just saw a bunch of trucks set up.
Oh, yeah?
Outside of like a building.
Yeah.
It's not an exciting story.
I have you seen Map to the Stars?
No.
Or Map of the Stars? It is very bad. I hated it.
Yeah.
Have you seen this film Cosmopolis with Robert Pattinson?
Oh, maybe it was Cosmopolis actually.
You know what? It was Cosmopolis, yeah. Because that I'm just thinking about when you were in Toronto, and that makes more sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's unwatchable. It's not a good film.
Have you seen the movies by David Cronenberg's son?
No, but I heard he makes cool stuff.
Yeah. I think he's picking up the mantle.
That's good. He's also the Baron of Blood.
Yeah.
I just love that a guy like Cronenberg can make Videodrome and film with Viggo Mortensen where he's Russian. Eastern Promises.
Oh, History of Violence? Oh, okay, yeah.
But also A History of Violence. Great movie. It's just funny. He's made like some amazing films and some real turds.
The Fly.
Oh, The Fly. Well, actually,
classic.
The Fly is like his most famous film.
Yeah.
It's like, and commercially his biggest hit.
Yeah.
But Naked Lunch is probably my favorite Cronenberg film. Have you ever seen it?
No, I've never seen Naked Lunch, I don't think.
There's a cockroach typewriter with a butthole, and you have to like titillate its butthole for it to type for you. It's pretty, and you have to like take like powdered heroin and like rub it on the sphincter. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, that makes sense that you like it. You're into BH stuff. Whenever there's a BH on film, you love it. And I'm not talking body horror.
Talking buttholes, everybody. All right. Enough. Wow, I really keep painting myself in this corner as a pervert.
Well,
which is
all I do is I just say Bob is this thing, and then nobody can argue.
I mean, if you want to go on social media and say Bob isn't a pervert, I'd really appreciate that. But you don't feel obligated.
You can control our social media accounts. You can go on there and write Bob.
I know, but how desperate would that look?
Yeah, I guess so.
Anyway, so some heavy hitters on this film. James Woods, heavy hitter. He's a great actor. Behind the scenes, Howard Shore did the score for this film, which is crazy. Howard Shore, famous for Lord of the Rings.
Why is his name Howard Shore? It should be Howard Score.
Holy shit, Mike. Write that guy a letter and tell him his whole life is a mistake.
Change your name. I'm confused.
Change your name.
What are you, a beach of some kind? What is going on here?
Rick Baker did all the creature effects, and he's famous. He trained under a guy named Dick Smith, who is like a legendary Hollywood makeup effects guy. Mm-hmm. And like he did The Exorcist and stuff. And then Rick Baker was his protege. And he went on to do like American Werewolf in London is probably his most famous film. He did the werewolf transformation. And then he's done a ton of body horror with David Cronenberg and lots of cool shit. I guess another similarity between the two movies is there's like really obvious violence that doesn't look realistic.
Yeah, I was going to say that, yeah.
But like aesthetically, they look like putty and rubber and stuff like that, you know?
Well, also a lot of fake body parts.
Oh, right. The arm chopped off in the Samurai Cop.
Yeah, well, I also was going to say, in Samurai Cop, they stopped filming. And so the main actor got his hair cut. And then the director was like, oh, we still have some more stuff I want to film. And he's like, what? So in some shots, he's clearly wearing a woman's like long black hair wig. And it looks weird. And then in other shots, it's his real hair. So it's like there's fake body parts in both.
That's crazy. And oh, wow. And I'm sure it's like, I don't remember now, but I did notice a couple shots and I was like, holy shit, was he wearing a wig the whole time? And they just like fucked up on this day putting it on. But I guess that was his real hair. Yeah,
there's the most egregious example is in the fight scene near the end where he's fighting that guy, whatever his name is, Robert Zarr.
Yeah.
Yeah, the shots change or his head has like a wig on it in some shots and it doesn't have a wig on it in some shots. And then also the shots with the wig are also filmed clearly on a completely different day and time of day. So it's like magic hour for one shot and then it's like the middle of the day the next shot. And he's wearing a wig when it's magic hour and not the other time. Yeah.
What a masterpiece. Honestly,
it kind of is.
This film is a good time. Like I really enjoyed myself.
Yeah, it was fun.
Oh, fuck, that's funny. I forgot where I was going with it. But, I guess like body parts and stuff. That's a good one. But the arm chop off, I love. That felt like a Videodrome shot.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was also going to say there's mutilation in both films. The guy puts his hand in James Woods' like little stomach mouth.
Right.
And then he gets his hand kind of bitten off.
Oh, that's right.
And then in Samurai Cop, there's a part where they talk about being circumcised. Remember that part?
Yeah, that's right.
Are you circumcised?
Well, that scene with the nurse and she's like, do you like what you see? And then she just like touches his crotch and she's like, not big enough or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they just keeps doing a close up to the other police officer.
Yeah,
and his eyes are just getting like, bigger.
Yeah.
Awooga. Eyeballs. Oh, Jesus. What
love
a crazy. I love it. Yeah. All the close ups look like they were shot months later, which I really like. I just think that's a nice detail. What else do I have to say? That's basically it for Videodrome.
Nice.
I could keep chatting about it, but I think we should talk about Samurai Cop.
So Samurai Cop came out in 1991. And to understand the film, I think it requires understanding the director. And the director was a man named Amir Shervin, who is from Iran. He was an Iranian director and producer. He died 2006, so 15 years ago. He Yeah, he studied in California, but then he moved back to Iran to make some movies. But because of the Iranian Revolution, like a lot of films got censored. And so he kind of came back to the States because he wanted to basically make action movies, kind of like Die Hard and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at his catalog of films, they're all like action films with titles like Hollywood Cop, Samurai Cop, Killing American Style. And Samurai Cop was his last movie also.
Oh, it was?
Yeah. So he
his
kind
swan
of like,
song.
He stopped making movies and then kind of disappeared for 15 years. And the movie didn't really become famous until after he died.
Mm.
So he didn't really even get to see his movie become like a cult hit.
Do you know why he stepped away from filmmaking?
No. I think maybe because he wasn't good at it. He had made 4 or 5 movies already and he kept being bad at it. So
okay, that's fair.
Who knows?
Wow.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why he stopped or how he died. I'm sure we can find out how he died, but yeah, that's not really important.
No, no.
So the actor Matt Hannon, who plays Joe, the titular samurai cop, he only had MMA experience, so he didn't really know any weapon stuff.
Right.
So they had an action choreographer, but just because of how poorly scheduled the movie was, it was all kind of choreographed right before they shot. So they just kind of like improvised or figured it out, and then they shot it. And it wasn't so bad, I guess. The action scenes weren't the worst.
No. Did anyone get hurt?
I don't think so.
You know?
Not that I could
that's
find
good.
it.
That's great. There's no famous like, oh yeah, that helicopter crashed on somebody.
Oh yeah. Well, there's a lot of vehicles in this movie.
Yeah, a lot of, you can tell they shot a lot of it illegally too. Like the camera's like clearly trying to hide, but they're shooting across the street.
Yeah.
Like when the car parks, but it parks into a walk lane. Like they didn't have I just love it. Those little details are really fun.
Yeah, that one, like the big opening action sequence where it just, you can't really follow exactly what is happening. They're basically just getting in different vehicles and then going somewhere and trying to find somebody, but I couldn't really actually figure out what they accomplished or what they were trying to do.
Well, that feels like Videodrome. They both feel aimless.
Yeah. Oh,
both movies in a way. Hey? Yeah.
Quasi improvised, I bet. But yeah, the scene when he hits on the woman in the helicopter, like while she's in a helicopter and he's in like a car or something like that, and then he winks at the camera like because he hit on this helicopter lady, and then the next scene is them just naked having sex.
They're not. I guess she's naked and he isn't.
Oh, I don't know. You don't really see him.
No, he's always in a Speedo at most.
Yeah. So the actor Matt Hannon, apparently he did not like how quickly the director Amir Shervin moved, like as a director. Like he would just do 1 take, sometimes 2 takes. Like it was such a quick process, and so he got really frustrated. So he would occasionally ruin takes on purpose, just to like test the director. And they just kept moving, and like they put some of those takes in the movie. And so he was like, "Whoops, shouldn't have done that."
What a disservice to everyone.
He thought that was kind of a mistake.
Yeah.
If you notice, the movie's shot almost entirely in the daytime.
Yep.
Because they didn't want to rent lights, so they just filmed it inside or outside with just kind of available daylighting or whatever was in the buildings they were in. And also, they didn't really use production sound on the movie, so I don't know if you noticed, but it's a lot of ADR. Pretty much the entire movie. Yeah.
Really? Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, and so sometimes they couldn't get the actors who weren't the main characters to do their own dubbing.
Oh, really?
Or sometimes he couldn't even get he just didn't have the right takes or something like that. So sometimes Amir would just do the dubbing himself for a lot of the movies, which is why sometimes a character will be like, "I gotta go," and he just sounds completely different.
So here's another similarity. The director played the main character in lieu of the actor, because David Cronenberg is the guy with the headset on, because James Woods was afraid of being electrocuted.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's David, and they look very similar. They have like almost identical. I mean, James Woods. Is it Woods or Wood?
I think it's James Woods.
Woods, yeah. Like the woods. Okay, James Woods is like claustrophobic and afraid of being electrocuted. But David Cronenberg looks like him. They have the same hair. He's just a little bit paler. So anyways, and then I guess, and the director of Samurai Cop played multiple characters.
He really did, yeah. He played pretty much every character in the movie, I think.
Isn't he by definition more of an auteur than like, say, Francois Truffaut or...
It could be argued, yes. Yeah,
Godard.
Because he had such a impact on the film.
Yeah. Wow. We should really be taking notes from this guy.
Just a couple more notes about the movie. Matt Hannon, the actor, was one of Sylvester Stallone's bodyguards in the 80s.
Really?
Yeah. And he's just watching Sylvester Stallone and seeing how he kind of like lived the high life. He's like, I want that. And I kind of look like him a little bit.
Well, you know what I thought you were going to say, Mike, was that he was a body double for him.
No, he was his bodyguard, I guess.
Yeah, interesting. Cool.
Yeah, and so he tried to get into movies. He made Samurai Cop, and then nothing else.
He only made one movie?
Yeah, and then in 1992, he was involved in an armed robbery trying to steal a Rembrandt painting from a televangelist.
Why wouldn't you start with that? That's the most insane thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, so he was in prison for a while, and then people thought he was dead for a couple of years.
Holy shit.
And his daughter had to come out and publicly be like, no, my dad's still alive. And then kind of around that same time was when Samurai Cop kind of hype started happening. Like, The Room got famous and everybody was excited for bad movies again.
Well, here's another similarity. I would say both Videodrome and Samurai Cop are cult classics.
Yeah.
That took a long time to age, and they aged well.
Yeah.
And they're more popular now than with their initial release.
Yeah. Yeah.
So lots of similarity. But that's crazy. So he tried to steal a Rembrandt painting for someone, obviously, and then went to jail for a long time. Had a family still, amidst all this shit. And he's only in one movie ever.
Well, no, because Samurai Cop 2 exists.
Have you seen it?
No, but it's on Tubi.
I know. I saw it. It actually popped up before Samurai Cop.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I bet it's more
want to
popular.
see it, but it wasn't directed by the same guy.
Oh.
So
I wonder if it's like marginally better.
I think it will be marginally better. I think it will be basically like, it'll take all the fun out of Samurai Cop because Samurai Cop was done in earnest and is bad, and that's why it's fun.
Yeah.
Because there's like an actual genuine attempt at filmmaking here, and there's something always admirable about that, whereas Samurai Cop 2 will be constantly winking at you because you're like, hey, you like this thing, right? It's like Space Jam 2 coming out this week. It's like, remember the thing you like? Well, here it is. That's
a really good point. I guess, for those films to work, like they're so bad they're good, they have to be in earnest.
They
all
do,
the way through.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's part of the tragedy and the allure, right? You want to watch like when something's on fire, you need to like slow down and look at it and be like, what's that? It shouldn't be on fire. Like a dumpster.
Yeah, got to see that dumpster on fire.
Yeah. That's so interesting, Mike. What a crazy... Are there any interviews with this guy?
Oh, yeah. There's a couple of interviews with him, yeah.
I might go down the rabbit hole later today.
Speaking of, the guy with who's kind of plays the bad guy and has the big head.
Yeah, right.
So apparently that's because he has a medical condition called cherubism.
Oh.
Which results in an enlarged jawline. So
the jaw?
Yeah,
or like your whole skull expands.
Yeah, your whole skull is like that, but he just kind of has a very prominent jawline, which is alarming to see at first. But then he's had a very, very prolific career. Like he's pretty much made at least one movie a year for the last 40 years.
He's he looks like a villain. Like
he does, yeah, exactly. He's always a villain. Right? He's never like great. The heartthrob, obviously.
He points at his jaw and he's like, "It's my moneymaker."
Yeah, and if you look at pictures of him, his face just kind of expands as he gets older. So
really,
his jaw is much bigger now than it was in the 80s and 90s.
So just like Andre the Giant never stopped growing, he kept
kind of
growing. Well, that's so interesting. Like people who have conditions where they keep growing, it just is so dangerous.
Yeah,
like for your body, that's really interesting. Wow, crazy. That's fucking nuts.
It's crazy nuts. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all I got about Samurai Cop. There's obviously probably a lot more, just because it's such a fascinating film.
Yeah. It is like, I would tell anyone to watch it. Like it's so much fun. And like you said, it is like a Andy Sedaris vibe.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say like I enjoyed Samurai Cop more than Hard Ticket to Hawaii.
Oh, really?
Because Hard Ticket to Hawaii just kind of like felt like softcore pornography and like an excuse to film nudity, whereas the intentionality in Samurai Cop, you could tell that the attempt was to make something really good. This may or may not be true, but as a viewer, it felt like the nudity wasn't in it so that people would watch the film. It was like not the focus. The focus was like this epic story of gangs battling in LA.
Yeah.
And trying to like tell a police story or whatever. I don't know. It felt different and more genuine.
But I think you're right in that the nudity is just kind of like a plot or like a trope, I guess, that he just feels like he has to include.
It just feels more narrative, like it's more tied into the narrative than in a Sedaris film. Because like it is pretty wild. Like there's some pretty uncomfortable shit that's said in this movie. Like, keep it warm for me. That's like a really, really nasty thing to say. And I forget what she says. Like, is it hard? He's like hard and ready.
Mm-hmm.
But she's in a helicopter talking to him over the radio so everyone can hear.
Yeah. And
just crazy shit.
And
then immediately cut to them dry humping.
Yeah.
Ugh, crazy. But also fucking awesome. Just on a weird level, you know?
Yeah, and then he like trying to like just puts his hand on her head and just like rubs it around, but like doesn't really seem to have any clear idea of what he's supposed to be doing. He just kind of is trying to touch her somehow.
Yeah. Well, you know that...
And she doesn't know how to act.
You know that they're being yelled at like off screen by the director, you know, which is like funny. You can tell in certain scenes like, they're obviously getting real-time direction from him because there's no audio.
Oh, yeah.
Which I love. Okay, well, let's get into some more comparisons.
I gotta say, both movies have actors who have big heads.
Go on.
I mean, so the main character in Samurai Cop, he's kind of has like a long, oval of a head. He just has a giant like oval head, and then the other guy
he does have a big noggin.
Yeah, and then the other guy and his hair makes his head look even way bigger. And then the other guy, Robert Zedar, he has a condition which makes his head kind of like large. So like James Woods, I would say, just kind of has like a tiny skinny little body and like a very giant long head. And then he acts opposite Debbie Harry, famously kind of like a circle face.
That's true.
Not to comment on anybody's attractiveness, because I think when you're in Hollywood, they say like actors got to have big heads. Not just not ego wise, but just actually they look better on camera.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what I hear. So, but also I think the casting choices, for whatever reason, there's just something kind of like there's a certain body horror just to the actors' appearances in these films.
I agree.
Yeah,
it was nice. Both films, like you know how like you watch like a British murder mystery, or you watch like American CSI, and you're just like everyone's just kind of glossy and shiny in CSI, and then everyone's just kind of pale and tired looking in a British show. It's just like more realistic versus like the magazine front look in American stuff. I love that both the films that we chose, no one looks really good. Everyone just kind of looks like shit, which is refreshing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like even though both films are really unrealistic, I think they're more realistic in a way, just in terms of like human bodies and fucking how weird people look.
Yeah.
You know, even the main star, like he's like chiseled, pretty tight chassis, you know, but also a weird looking guy.
Yeah. He's handsome, but also friggin' weird looking.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, this guy's like really, really attractive, but then also, what's up with this guy?
Yeah. You're just confused when you look at him.
Yeah. I feel like James Woods is kind of like that.
Yeah. Well, he's got kind of like an ugly mug. Yeah. But also like he's got this really bizarro chemistry.
Yeah.
Like, or charisma is the word I want to use.
Well,
charisma.
He also has like a great voice.
He does.
He's got just like a great actor voice.
But you know what's interesting? I don't think he's a very good actor.
He's not a good actor, no.
But I like him. Like I'm a fan. I admire his work. But like you know that the guy does not have range.
75, 85, 90, and $1. Thank you, and come again. Hey, wait a minute. Hey, can I just ask you a question? Did you believe that? I mean, the way I gave you the change, did I sound like a real Quickie Mart, kind of guy?
Actually, I thought it was a little labored.
Huh.
You gotta lose yourself in the moment, man.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay, let's just try that again, okay? Come on. Hey, come on. Hey, get over here. Okay, now you're you, I'm me.
I'm me?
Hey, don't jerk me around, fella.
Like, I think he's got such a tiny little scale of emotions that he can use, and that really limits him. But at the same time, he's fun to look at and watch. And he's a weirdo. Like, he's willing to have a chest vagina and stuff.
He's kind of like the Christopher Walken, Jeff Goldblum kind of. And maybe that's what David Cronenberg likes about him, because he also worked with Jeff Goldblum. Did he work with Christopher Walken?
He did in the Dead Zone or whatever. Yeah. It's actually on Netflix, where he's right. Like a telepathic. He can tell the future if he touches people after a 5-year coma.
Yeah, so
it's a crazy movie.
So he did these movies with like these kind of weird character actors who have very unique ways of talking and very unique voices, and also kind of like unique faces. Although I guess in The Fly, Jeff Goldblum was like handsome as hell.
Oh, and again, tight chassis on that guy. My goodness, that was like Apex Goldblum.
Yeah. So there's that.
Both movies have arbitrary villains.
Agreed.
That don't make sense or even really affect the main character, yet they seek them out for no reason.
And the villain also has to give you like a long ass monologue when confronted, just to explain everything.
Yeah, and like the villain is doing something evil, but you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Like there's like that weird monologue and the samurai cop is like talking about giving high school kids drugs. And I'm like, is this a really weak attempt at explaining the criminality of this guy? Because it doesn't really justify the means. Like, I don't understand what the fuck is going on.
They just need to steal money from a bank. It doesn't need to be complicated.
No, like Point Break.
Yeah.
Super simple, super fun. You don't need a long monologue, but it's so ambiguous in both of these films. Like the guy, Dr. whatever, inside of the TV.
Dr. Oblivion,
yeah, like inside of the TV and stuff. Oh, I had one more note I wanted to say about the cinematography of the movie. So a big chunk of the film is shot on videotape, right? Because there's like the Japanese porno, all of the Dr. Oblivion testimonials and like tapes and stuff. So the cinematographer for the movie, he's like old school, used to shooting on film, and like a big chunk of the movie was shot on videotape. And so he was really uncomfortable with like the square frame. The lighting is like really like hard because there's no dynamic range on videotape. And the other thing he fucking hated was that everyone could see what he was shooting because it went out to a TV monitor.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And so he's used to like looking through the eyepiece and framing shots, and nobody can tell him what to do because they don't even know what he's doing.
Yeah.
And he likes that. And he like said in an interview, he's like, the worst thing about that movie was that people could look at my shot while I was making it, which is funny because now literally everything, any movie, any TV show, any commercial, everyone's looking at monitors.
Yeah, there's like a dozen people always gathered around Video Village every time.
Yeah, so it's just funny that he was like pissed off about that. And I think he's still alive and still shooting. And like pretty funny that he's probably used to it now, but he hated it back in the 80s.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it does. And like, if you got a flow, but I just thought that was interesting because that's literally, there's no way to make a movie like that now.
Yeah.
It's just everything is monitors and stuff. So I thought that was funny. But anyways, yeah, back to similarities, arbitrary villains. And also just character motivation makes no sense.
Yeah.
The main character has no motivation.
Just wants to be a porn guy.
Yeah.
He just wants to run a TV network that just plays kind of bad porn movies, softcore movies.
Also, both films, the protagonist doesn't really have any friends.
No.
Like, they have a lover. They have coworkers, but no friends.
Yeah.
Like even his partner, they're not friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting. You never see them like go for a beer or whatever, talk about their ex-wives or whatever the hell the police trope is. So I think that's interesting.
Good. In both movies, there's like a East meets West mentality that kind of happens.
What do you mean?
Well, in Videodrome, they get those like, video feeds from Malaysia, they think.
Oh, right, yeah.
And he's like, this is going to be the next best thing. It's going to really influence like where softcore pornography or whatever the hell our network does is going and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And becomes obsessed by it. Similarly, in Samurai Cop, he's a samurai and a cop. So it's just like, and they have that little monologue where they talk about how great he is and how he trained in Japan and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. So stupid. I love it. And also, I guess, like, because the gang is Japanese, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, exactly, that too.
And they're fighting, like, LA cops, so.
But then one of them is a samurai, kind of.
A white Sylvester Stallone knockoff.
Yeah.
Samurai, yeah, which is super.
Who really only shows how much of a samurai he is at the end when he manages to get a hold of a sword.
Yeah. Both films, so this is a twofold. This is a two-parter. So the main character causes a lot of controversy by showing up. So like James Woods' character causes controversy because he's like famous as this like arbiter of pornography and, you know, distributing it on late night television. And he does that interview scene and he's kind of getting grilled, and then Oblivion's there for some reason, just pontificating. And then obviously Samurai, the guy from the movie, Samurai Cop, causes a lot of controversy. The titular Samurai Cop causes a lot of controversy because his methods, everyone's dying. The police chief is upset with him.
Classic.
You know, stuff like that. But also both characters are playboys and they ask somebody out and immediately have sex with them.
Oh, yeah.
So that's fun.
Yeah.
So they're both horn dogs. And I'd say both films are just super horny.
Oh, for sure. Super, super horny.
Yeah.
Both movies feature vigilante justice. Just the main character going and just doing stuff, regardless of whether or not... I mean, he's not technically a vigilante because he's technically a cop. But
the Samurai Cop?
Yeah. But he just kind of still does whatever he wants, even though the chief gets mad at him. So... and then, also in Videodrome, there's vigilante justice in that I'm going to go kill these people with my bone gun that comes out of my hand.
Yeah, that shoots cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck. How weird. Oh, yeah, there's just shit that just doesn't make sense in Videodrome.
Yeah, even the ending is kind of like, doesn't make sense. It just kind of goes into this weird culty thing, which I guess maybe is the point where he just says, this is the new flesh. And then maybe he's just been overtaken by Videodrome, whatever that is.
Yeah. It's just none of it makes sense. You know what the original ending was?
What?
And this was vetoed. So the original ending was going to show like a television screen. And then in the Videodrome, like the flesh wax wall or whatever. And like the whips and stuff. And then so Oblivion, the female lead whose name I can't remember.
Debbie Harry, and James Woods were all going to show up and they were all going to have chest vaginas. And then Debbie Harry and James Woods were going to make out. That was the original ending. And they were going to be inside of the Videodrome. And honestly, I think that would have been better. But apparently he vetoed it because he's like, people could attest that to being the afterlife. And he's like a devout atheist or whatever. Yeah.
And so he was like, I don't want to have any part of the film suggest that there's like a religious background or that there's a suggestion that there's an afterlife or a god. So he vetoed it and did this new ending.
Good.
Also, both films have a really tight runtime.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're both tight 90-ish.
And they clip along, man. They really have great pacing, considering one of them's terrible and one of them's like a cult classic. They both just chug along. They just make it happen. I really like it.
Also, both movies, speaking of Debbie Harry, both movies got a lot of Blondie in them.
Yes.
Because she's from the band Blondie.
Is she?
Yeah.
Oh.
And then Samurai Cop, all of the women are blonde.
So you know what's interesting, actually? So Debbie Harry, this was like one of her first movies, and she was super nervous to be in it. And James Woods like helped her along. But I'd say probably in both films, a lot of first-time actors.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Because a bunch of the extras and like smaller bit parts were played by Torontonian, I guess, actors who probably didn't have a lot of film experience.
No.
Just probably a bunch of thespians doing plays and shit.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, yeah, a lot of first-time actors, yeah.
I would say the theme of Videodrome matches kind of the vibe of Samurai Cop in that
Go on.
They keep repeating the television screen is the retina of the mind's eye in Videodrome.
Mm-hmm.
Television is the new religion or something like that. Television is this new kind of thing that's just going to like absorb our culture. But anyway, in Samurai Cop, I think just genre cliches kind of fed through a blender.
Yeah, absolutely. You could probably write a really good like thesis on that, like a master's thesis in like film studies about, the regurgitation of just like American cinema tropes.
Yeah.
And how there's no original thought anymore.
Well, also just it's interesting because they're both not American movies technically.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, Samurai Cop is in that it was made in America, but it has a foreign perspective, I guess, on the States, because of the director. And I wouldn't say
and
that.
So does Videodrome, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And even like in Videodrome, it's like absorbing media from other countries and kind of reinterpreting it in your own kind of country.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and there's like, it's like, oh, the signal's actually coming from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're like, wow, Pittsburgh, we should drive to Pittsburgh. Both films feature a vehicle that is unnecessary and doesn't make any sense. Okay?
Go on.
So hear me out. In Videodrome, there's just like this whole chunk of the film that takes place on a boat in the Toronto harbor.
Mm-hmm.
And the boat is like derelict and retired and like can't float anymore or whatever. And for some reason, they just put some scenes in this boat. I feel like they just looked at it and they were like, that boat is fucking cool. Let's write it into the movie. Similarly, I think they were like, we have this police helicopter for 3 hours. How much can we use it?
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
they just wrote it into the film for no reason. They just thought it would add like arbitrary production value.
There's also a boat in Samurai Cop that they get in briefly.
Oh, that's right. With the drug trade-off at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Just when everybody's just getting in different vehicles constantly.
You're also confused. Like the two guys who are in the back of the van with their shotguns. I was like, wait, are those cops? Like, why are they hiding? Just didn't make any sense. The doling out of information was so poorly done in that sequence. And that's what's charming about it.
That's what's beautiful about it.
Yeah. I guess both films, we'll end on this super solid one, but 'cause this is the best one we've done so far. Both films take place in a city near a huge body of water.
Good.
Yeah. And have beaches.
And have
Toronto,
beaches,
famously, lots of lakes, and or a big lake. And then LA, the ocean.
That's
the
true,
biggest lake of them all.
Truly the biggest lake, yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you suggested Samurai Cop. It was a good time.
Yeah, I'm glad I did too. It was, it's a lot of fun. When I watched it with riff tracks attached to it.
Oh, I forgot you can do that.
Yeah, and I think it's better without. Honestly,
I'm glad I watched it just as like the sobering experience that it is, untainted by comedic timing.
I feel like a movie that's inherently funny because of how bad it is doesn't necessarily need people kind of chuckling over top of it and pointing out all of the things you're supposed to laugh at. Like that feels like it kind of is. The movie's doing a lot of the work for you.
Yeah.
I actually think
it's low hanging fruit for comedians to be
100%.
This movie's so bad.
Yeah. Look at how big
make
that
a
guy's head
podcast
is.
about it or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas Videodrome, I feel like if you watch that with like an audience and you had comedians chuckling over top, it might actually work better.
Probably.
Because there's so much twistedness in it, and it's not so... It's earnest, but it's not funny necessarily.
No.
So
there's nothing
a little
funny
bit more
in the
to
film.
do.
But you know who isn't a very funny person is David Cronenberg. I've watched a lot of interviews with that guy, and sometimes he like cracks a joke and nobody laughs, and it's like, oh, fuck. This guy's not funny, and it rubs off in the films.
Oh, also worth bringing up, James Woods. He's like a spooky conservative guy now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's gone kind of off the deep end.
He's like a Republican, and
he's like a Republican, but one of those ones who like has to chime in on like outrage culture and on, the Me Too movement and all that stuff, just like with the worst takes.
Really? I wasn't aware of that. That's a bummer.
Yeah, it is a bummer because I remember just being like, James Woods is cool in the 80s. And then now just like, oh man, he really sucks. Like
and
Kevin Sorbo also.
You'd have to be pretty liberal to make a film like Videodrome. Like
I know. I was surprised he was in it.
He's just like a little theater actor and like making movies and stuff. And then I guess now he's just like has a very clouded sort of view of the world.
Well, one of the movies that I pitched that we watch for the podcast, which we still can do, stars James Woods, and it's the Rudy Giuliani story, where he plays Rudy Giuliani post 9/11, and it's like a hero's like portrait of Rudy Giuliani, not like the insane weirdo that we know now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Rudy Giuliani post 9/11. There's like love scenes in it and stuff, so you get to see James Woods as like a bald Rudy Giuliani
making love
to people, and it's like I gotta watch this.
That sounds great. But honestly, that's right up our alley.
Yeah, but when I talked to you about it, it was like right as the election was happening, I think.
Oh,
I was like, we should do this for the election, but I think we were all just so burned out on Trump.
Well, yeah, it's like too hot button at the time, maybe. But now, like, we've had some time. Biden is the president.
What?
Yeah.
Not for long if Trump gets his way.
That's right. He won't. Not to get into it, but he won't. Yeah, we should do that movie. I think that'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah, just...
and that's a good film, right?
Yeah.
Heralded as a classic.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds really good. Well, let's wrap this puppy up, Mike.
Sure, let's wrap it up.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Honestly, I know that most of you don't watch the films. You just kind of go along with this journey. But if you have the free time, both of these movies are super fun.
Yeah.
And you should absolutely watch them.
Yeah, we watched Videodrome on Crave TV in Canada. I don't know what it's like in the States or in other countries, but we watched that, how we watched it here in Canada. So if you have a subscription to that, you're ahead.
It's on Prime.
It's on Amazon Prime too?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
There's a lot of ways to watch it.
There you go. Or just seek out a VHS of it and watch it the way it was meant to be seen. Yeah.
Yeah. 480p.
On a CRT television.
Yeah, exactly.
We were trying to wrap this up, but I did read an interesting thing about how CRT televisions kind of fooled you into thinking you had a higher quality image because of how fuzzy they were.
Mm-hmm.
So you could watch something low resolution, but because of the fuzziness, it kind of like softened everything and made everything just like look a little bit more pristine and collected.
Yeah.
You know, if that makes any sense, like with old video games, it was mostly about video games, how the pixels are like, if you play an old game now on an HDMI, 4K TV, it just looks like crap because the CRT TV would smooth out the pixels and make everything like really blend together and look really nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the same with like VHS.
Oh, totally. So, well, and that's just like the beauty of analog technology like that.
Yeah. And also
everything's smoothed.
Also why like CG graphics of the 90s and 80s just kind of looked better at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're watching, we watched Phantom Menace. I watched it on a 4K TV and it was, Jar Jar really just popped out of every shot. And not because of his dynamic personality.
No, or the wonderful performance.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I just thought that was really fascinating and we should go back to that time sometime,
I agree. We should do an episode where we literally watch both movies on VHS.
Yeah.
On a CRT
that's a good idea.
TV. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to have a little CRT TV, and it was 6 inches diagonally. And it had a VHS player built into the bottom. It was like you're supposed to take it with you in the car.
Yeah.
And it weighed about 35 pounds.
Yeah, it's also crazy how heavy TVs were. I remember I had to move a TV once, and I needed like 3 people to lift it.
Yeah, it's like 2 people can do a grand piano, but then it's like, oh, my 38-inch TV needs to move. And it's like, oh, sick, how heavy is it? And it's like, oh, it's 382 pounds.
Yeah, exactly. We actually had, like in Videodrome, they have that wooden TV on the floor.
Yeah.
We had a TV like that when I was a kid.
The TV he makes love to.
Yeah, oh, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, and who among us didn't,
Yeah.
To our wooden television on the ground.
Hot and heavy. It's a good looking TV.
Yeah, it was like I have a TV and it's going to take up a corner of the room or a space in the room. And it never, ever is going to leave that area.
Yeah.
Because it's so big and heavy and just also on the ground. It's weird to think about how we all used to look at screens. Like we had to look down at them.
Mm-hmm. And now everything's wall mounted or like in a nice, like sort of cabinet situation.
Yeah. I guess we do look down at screens, but only on the toilet, really.
Exactly. On the toilet. The toilet TV, a.k.a. my cell phone. Okay, yeah, let's wrap this up.
Sure, yeah.
Enough toilet talk for 1 week, huh?
Enough toilet talk, yeah.
Well, yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the episode. And honestly, watch these movies. They're way more fun than a lot of the films we watch.
Oh, yeah. This was a fun little zinger of an episode for sure. For sure.
Yeah. For sure, bud.
For sure,
okay,
bud.
Great. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Hello.
Hi.
How is he? Do you think he'd be able to answer a few questions?
No way, his lips are burned.
So what, he'll never be able to talk again?
Oh, he'll talk again, but you just have to give him a couple of weeks. Next time, guys, catch him in one piece.
Thanks, nurse.
Do you like what you see?
I love what I see.
Would you like to touch what you see?
Yes, I would.
Would you like to go out with me?
Yes, I would.
Would you like to fuck me?
Bingo.
Well, then let's see what you've got. Doesn't interest me. Nothing there.
Nothing there? Just exactly what would interest you? Something the size of a jumbo jet?
Have you been circumcised?
Yeah, I have. Why?
Well, your doctor must have cut a big portion of it off.
No, he was a good doctor.
Good doctors make mistakes, too. That's why they buy insurance.
Hey, don't worry. I got enough. It's big.
I want bigger.
Hey, I have,